I've already moved in with her. My husband looked me straight in the eyes and said those words at our anniversary dinner. And then he reached across the table to hold his mistress's hand. I froze. The air left my lungs. The world around me blurred, but their smiles were sharp, cutting through me like a knife. You... what? My voice barely came out. He sighed, almost annoyed. I've already moved in with her. The woman beside him, young, beautiful, shameless, leaned closer, resting her head on his shoulder. She didn't flinch. She didn't hide. The restaurant buzzed with laughter, the clinking of glasses, but all I could hear was my heartbeat pounding in my ears. You brought her here? My hands shook under the table. To our dinner? He smirked. Figured it was time you knew. I gripped the edge of the table, my stomach twisting. This wasn't just betrayal. This was humiliation. And it was only the beginning. I had always believed in love, the kind that withstands time, hardships, and even the mundane routines of everyday life. My husband, Daniel, was my best friend before he became my partner. We built a life together, one filled with whispered dreams and promises of forever. I wasn't naive. I knew marriage had its challenges, but I never thought ours would fall apart so suddenly, so cruelly. Looking back, maybe the cracks had been forming for a while. It started with late nights at the office. Just one more meeting, he'd say, kissing my forehead before rushing out. I didn't question it at first. Daniel was ambitious, and I admired that about him. But then, the missed calls turned into ignored messages, and the quick kisses turned into distant nods. Then, there was the perfume. A scent too floral, too sweet to be mine. It clung to his clothes, faint but undeniable. You're imagining things, he chuckled when I asked. It's probably from a coworker's hug. I told myself not to overthink it. After all, we had our anniversary coming up, a night that would remind us of everything we had built together. Or so I thought. The night before our dinner, I found a receipt crumpled in his jacket pocket. A 5-star hotel, a dinner for 2, a bottle of expensive wine. I ran my fingers over the date. Just 3 days ago. My stomach twisted. When I confronted him, he barely looked up from his phone. It was a business dinner, he muttered. Nothing to worry about. But I was worried. I should have listened to that feeling in my gut. Because the next night, when I walked into that restaurant expecting a romantic evening, I found him sitting across from her, top of form. The restaurant was dimly lit, filled with the low hum of quiet conversations and the clinking of wine glasses. My heart pounded as I walked toward our reserved table, expecting to see my husband waiting with a smile, maybe holding a bouquet of roses. Instead, he sat there, his arm draped over a woman half his age, whispering something in her ear that made her giggle. My body turned cold. For a moment, I thought I was hallucinating. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. But then Daniel turned, locking eyes with me, and I saw no flicker of shame. No hesitation. Just boredom. Like I was an inconvenience. You made it, he said, taking a sip of wine. I stood frozen. My throat tightened. Who is she? My voice barely came out. He exhaled sharply, as if exhausted by the question. This is Clara, he said casually. We've been seeing each other for a while. Actually, he set his glass down and smirked. I've already moved in with her. A deafening silence rang in my ears. The room around me blurred. Clara, still draped over him like a prize, gave me a pitying glance. He wanted to tell you sooner, she said, her voice sweet, almost condescending. But, timing is everything. I gripped the edge of the chair to keep myself from collapsing. My husband, the man who once swore to love me forever, had not only replaced me, but had the audacity to bring his mistress here, to what was supposed to be our night. Anger surged inside me, mixing with the humiliation clawing at my throat. I should have screamed, thrown my drink in his face, made a scene. But I couldn't move. I wasn't just losing my husband, I had already lost him. And he didn't even care. Top of form. The air in the restaurant felt suffocating, pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't shake off. My husband sat there, completely at ease, sipping his wine as if he hadn't just shattered my world. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. My voice trembled, but I forced the words out. You planned this, didn't you? Daniel shrugged. I didn't see the point in hiding it anymore. Clara smirked, resting her head on his shoulder. The sight of them together made my stomach churn. Was this a joke? Was I being filmed? My body shook, not just from anger, but from something deeper: betrayal, humiliation, devastation. I wanted to scream, to break every dish on the table, to claw at his perfect, unbothered face. But I refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. Instead, I exhaled, steadying myself. "You think you've won?" My voice was low but sharp. Daniel's smirk faltered for the first time. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone, my hand surprisingly steady now. I opened the email I had drafted days ago, the one I had hesitated to send, fearing it was too extreme. Not anymore. One tap. Sent. His phone vibrated almost immediately. He frowned, picking it up, his face turning pale as he read the email. Clara leaned in, trying to peek, but he pulled the screen away. "What the hell did you do?" His voice was no longer calm. I crossed my arms. "I forwarded every bank transaction to the lawyers, every business expense, every shady deal, every dollar you spent on her." I tilted my head toward Clara, whose smirk had completely vanished. "You wouldn't," he hissed. I smiled, because I already had. His wealth, his reputation, his so-called perfect life. I had just set it all on fire. The days that followed felt like a blur. Lawyers, meetings, endless paperwork. Every time my phone rang, I half expected it to be Daniel, begging, threatening, something. But the silence stretched on. I heard from mutual friends that his world had collapsed overnight. The financial investigation froze his accounts. His business partners pulled away, unwilling to be tied to the scandal. Clara, the woman he had left me for, disappeared the moment the money dried up. And me? I was free. It didn't feel that way at first. The weight of betrayal sat heavy in my chest. Nights were the hardest, the memories replaying like a broken record. The love, the lies, the moment he walked away as if I was nothing. But then, slowly, the pain turned into something else. Strength. I stood in front of the mirror one morning, staring at the woman who had survived. She wasn't broken. She wasn't defeated. She was still standing. I ran my hand over my belly, feeling the gentle kick of the life growing inside me. This wasn't the future I had planned, but maybe it was the one I needed. Daniel had taken everything, except me, and that was his biggest mistake. Because in the end, I didn't need him to win. I already had.